Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice little 9-game Major League Baseball slate for you. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? These games starts at 6:40 today. We do have a pretty weird slate because I didn't feel like the bats all that great, but I also didn't feel like pitching was all that great either. So it could definitely be kind of a weird slate for fantasy. So I'm playing a little lighter simply because of that. We had some really good lineups yesterday. We did manage some good finishes, so that's good. We do have a lot of weather concerns on the slate. The Kansas City Cleveland game is definitely questionable. I do think it ends up playing, but it's definitely a little bit risky. The Dodgers and Pittsburgh game also a little bit risky here, but it looks like this should be good. So one game at least that has some potential for some rain. But uh, then let's go ahead and get into our pitching today. So Case is our top, or Case is our top play of the slate for the Padres against the Angels. He's got the best matchups, one of the highest K rates, and even though he is the most expensive option, he's not overpriced today, where he's been over 10,000 some of the season, but he isn't right now. Partially because he's had a couple of rough games recently, but he's faced a fairly tough schedule lately, so I think he's in a really good spot here. Um, his K rate should carry him through here anyway, and so he's a really solid option today. Then we'll look at, oops, sorry about that. Then we'll look at Gilbert for Seattle. Now, he's a good GPP play today. He's one of just two guys that I think are secondary options today, with Gilbert being one of them against Oakland. Oakland's going to have some opportunity for a couple of home runs, but he definitely has some potential. He has struggled the last 5 games. He's been under 20 fantasy points in all 5 of the last, and he had only had one of those in the previous 8. So, or sorry, previous 7. So he has some risk here because he hasn't been pitching particularly well, though he has had a tougher schedule. However, some of the weaker games against Minnesota and yeah, a little bit weaker game against Washington. But overall, I think this is a pretty good game for him. He's got a good opportunity here, though there is a little bit of a home run risk from Oakland. The other guy I like a lot today is Rodon for the Yankees against Minnesota. Now, I do like a couple bats from Minnesota, but I do think that he's probably got the best potential just from a K rate potential situation here. He's got better strikeout upside than Gilbert does, so he's a little bit safer. But he's still kind of a little bit risky too, as his ceiling isn't quite as high as some of the guys that you'd like in these price ranges. But he is in play here. Some other guys that we can consider today are Skeens. Now, I think he's actually going to be fairly popular because of how he started the season. However, he's got the toughest matchup he's had so far this year. He's actually had a pretty favorable start to the season when it comes to the matchup situations here. But this is definitely going to get a lot harder fast with the Dodgers. And he's definitely some risk, but he definitely has a good K rate, so he's definitely got some potential here for a good game. I also think Barrios is in play for Toronto, though he does have a very brutal matchup against Baltimore. He's been solid with not a super high ceiling, but he's definitely in play on the slate as an extreme GPP option. He's had 4 straight 19 fantasy point games as well, including a game against Baltimore. And then we really have 2 more extreme GPP plays in Eflin for Tampa Bay. Now he's coming off the injured list, but he should be good to go here. He might be on a pitch count, so that is a little bit of concern, but he is in play on the slate against Miami, who's one of the weakest teams on the slate in general. Soriano has an interesting K rate because he's been getting some strikeouts in these games. He's a little bit inconsistent, but he also has been giving up some earned runs, so that's the downside here. And he's going up against San Diego. It is a tough matchup for him, but he's definitely had some upside games so far, so he's definitely an extreme GPP play. And then Talion and Garrett are both Hail Mary options and interesting matchups. Talion has been very inconsistent when it comes to actually scoring a decent amount of fantasy points, but he has a favorable matchup against the White Sox, who just don't have anybody that can pretty much do anything right now. And then Garrett, he does look interesting for Miami. He has a tough matchup against Tampa Bay. I do think I like Tampa Bay a lot, but he has flashed a good game against Arizona, and he hasn't given up any earned runs, only 1 earned run in the last 2 games. So he does have a little potential, though his K rate is very inconsistent. So he's a Hail Mary play at best. But I do like Tampa Bay a lot today from a batting perspective as well. So let's look at our catchers. So starting with our catchers today. Hang on, Ghost. How's it going? Anyhow, with our catchers today, Rutschman for Baltimore is in play today. He has a really good upside game here. Now, he's not got the best of metrics, but he's still pretty good. He's got some home run potential today. Ryan Jeffers, meanwhile, looks absolutely fantastic today for Minnesota. He's a little bit risky because Minnesota isn't one of the best good teams on the slate, but he has some of the upside, more of the upside for this team, so he's definitely worth a look. Cal Raleigh looks really good for Seattle, another team that has struggled some, but he has a lot of upside from a home run perspective. He is a little bit of a boom or bust play. To go a little safe, though, you could go with Bo Naylor for Cleveland. Now, he has not hit the ball particularly well, but he definitely has some potential today, as he has some good metric days at times, and when he does, he tends to have a couple hits. Of course, the other Cleveland pitch catcher, Fry, is also in play, though he's fairly expensive. Looking at first base, Otani definitely draws the top overall opportunity here. He's been absolutely fantastic all season, though he does need to score a home run to pay off. He's overpriced. Looking at Freddie Freeman, he's also fairly expensive, but he's a lot cheaper than Otani, so that gives him some utility here. Though the home runs have not been fantastic so far. Josh Naylor also in play with a lot of home run metrics today. Cleveland looks like a fantastic team to stack up. A couple of value plays at this position. Sheets for the Chicago White Sox. He's kind of a Hail Mary option. He's one of the few guys on the White Sox that look really good, but he does stand out here at first base, though he is mostly avoidable in the outfield. Yandy Diaz is a core play for me, as he's my favorite play at this position. One of my favorite plays on the slate. I think Tampa Bay is a good team to stack today, and he's been absolutely phenomenal lately. And he in his last game against Miami, he went 2 for 5. I look for him to have another game like that and have some home run upside as well. Vlad Jr. is in play, but he's a little bit pricey today. He's really not hit home runs a lot yet this season, but he still has good metrics and good home run potential on this one. And then Luis Arias, assuming he does play today, he's going to have a lot of potential. He's been phenomenal since joining the Padres, and he's going to have another opportunity here for a solid game. And he's fairly priced, a little bit cheaper than the rest of the expensive options. Looking at second base here, Marcus Semien is the top overall play for Texas, though I do think Texas is a good stack. I think he's going to be hard to roster at his price point. Jimenez for Cleveland also in play. Now, I do like a Cleveland stack today, but he is expensive, so he is also going to be hard to roster. But Ahmad Rosario is a nice value play at this position, which is really kind of limited today. And he can play at shortstop, but I think he fits better here at second simply because it's so limited. And he has some nice upside. However, you could look at Jake Cronenworth too and fit in both these guys, because you could put Ahmad Rosario at shortstop and Cronenworth at second base, and that's definitely a way to go today, as he has really phenomenal metrics for this game. Looking at third baseman, we do like Manny Machado as our top overall play, though the metrics here are not great. This position is also pretty weak, so even though he does have some upside today, he's definitely high risk. I do like Brian Hayes as a one-off for Pittsburgh. He has a favorable matchup here. He's got good metrics here, and he's been hitting the ball pretty well lately. Royce Lewis is a good option for Minnesota, but he's extremely expensive, though he did come back yesterday and hit a home run. He's actually played 2 games this season, and he's got 2 home runs, and he's only had 3 at bats, and he's gotten hits in all of them. So right now his metrics are a little bit silly, but he is in play at the slate. Paredes for Tampa Bay also interesting today, though he's a little bit overpriced for his potential. If you want a value play, then the best option is Rojas for Seattle, as he has some good metrics for this game, just for a couple multi-hit games. Looking at shortstops, Gunnar Henderson tops off the top here. He has the best metrics on the slate for this position. He's been phenomenal so far this season, and I look for him to continue that, though he's very expensive. Mookie Betts also in play here, as is Corey Seager. Even Bobby Witt Jr. has good metrics today, but I think if I was gonna rank these 4, it would be Henderson, Metz, Seager, and then Witt. But we have plenty of value options here as well, with Dansby Swanson falling in here for the Cubs. The Cubs do look really good today, but he's been inconsistent this season. However, he is getting hits the last few games, and so hopefully he's starting to see the ball better. Ahmad Rosario, like I already mentioned, can fit here. Jose Caballero can also hit here for Tampa Bay, as he's nice and cheap today, and even though he doesn't have a ton of home run upside, he's got good hitting metrics for the slate. And then Bo Bichette is kind of a Hail Mary option for this position, as he does draw good metrics. Only has had 4 home runs so far this season, which is disappointing, because I expect him to be better than that. but he is in play on the slate, so he's definitely worth a look. Let's move into our outfielders. Now, I do have Arizona as our top overall outfield. He has not been great so far this season, but he's finally starting to get some hits and string together some games. He's not been playing every day lately, so that is, he's not starting at least every day. So if he does draw the start, though, he'll be somebody I consider a lot here. But let's look at our stacks at our setup here and kind of get a look at these outfielders. So Otani, Cody Bellinger, Seo Suzuki, and Juan Soto are the top overall options. Excuse me. They all, excuse me. They all, excuse me. I'm sorry about that. They all look really good today and have top tier metrics for the slate. Riley Green, Ian Happ, Randy A, and Aaron Judge all are secondary options. I really do like Happ and Randy A today as they're nicely priced and they're not. They have really good value on the slate. Looking at the next three guys, Anquan, Talkman, and Perez. These guys are very contrarian today, but I do like all three. I think they all fit well in stacks. And then you could also consider Luis Robert and Gavin Sheets from the Chicago White Sox as kind of Hail Mary plays at this position. Let me go down here to our best metric options first. So our top overall metrics are, for home runs today are Aaron Judge, Otani, Soto, Freeman, and Royce Lewis and Mookie Betts. However, we do have three value plays in Yandy Diaz, Davis Schneider, and Randy Arozarena as really good home run upside guys and multi-hit potential. So I think all three of those guys look really good today. But when we look at our stacks, excuse me, we have some interesting stacks at the top with the Yankees, the Cubs, and the Texas Rangers. All three of these stacks are fairly expensive, with the exception of the Cubs, and there's a lot of different ways you can build these three teams. However, Texas is kind of straight and narrow. We got Seager, Simeon, Garcia, Lowe, and Tavares. It's pretty expensive, though. The Cubs stack is actually reasonable with Morel and Bellinger and Hop, and then either Suzuki, Talkman, or Horner and Swanson. You could use either, well, you could mix or match these sets. So you could use Suzuki, Horner, Talkman, Swanson, or any. There for the Yankees, Soto, Judge, Verdugo, Rizzo, and then one of Stanton, Torres, LeMahieu, and Wells. I do think I'm going to try to go cheap on this stack when it comes to the last guy to help pay up at other positions. The next set of stacks here with Cleveland through San Diego. All these stacks look very interesting today. They do have some good upside, and I think that they are viable teams. These are stacks, though, that are a little bit risky as some of these teams don't look particularly great, but they don't look bad either. And so, especially like Detroit and Seattle and Pittsburgh, they definitely have some potential. But we do have some value options through these stacks, which are definitely going to help make these playable. Then these bottom stacks here with the Dodgers through Miami. These stacks are kind of risky today, but they do have upside. I think the Dodger stack is probably okay, as a lot of guys do have good matchup metrics here, but with Sheens only playing a couple games, we don't have a ton of information yet there. For Tampa Bay, I do like this stack a lot. I think it's a viable stack, and I think that it's going to be a sneaky stack today and be popular. It won't be super popular, but it will definitely be something that can win if he does really well. For Baltimore, I think there's also a sneaky stack today, as I think they're in a better situation than what the metrics suggest. Looking at the the White Sox, the Minnesota Twins, and Miami. These three stacks are kind of rough, but they do have some potential, though I do like the pitchers against them as well. And then for the bottom two, the Angels and Oakland. These are pretty avoidable, though. The Oakland stack is actually kind of funky, as I do think they have some home run upside today, so they're definitely worth a look from that perspective. The Angels is pretty avoidable, as it was really tough to even get 5 or 6 guys to look at there. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys. Hey, Don Plug Ghost, are you still there? Because I saw your message. If you have any comments, feel free to ask it while I'm still on here. I see somebody says hello. Can you help me out? So I don't know if you're still here or not, but let's see if he is. But at any rate, this slate should be pretty interesting. I definitely think it's a riskier slate when it comes to the not a ton of value, but not a lot of super expensive options that are going to break the slate either, but the pitching is really rough. So probably definitely have to pay up at pitching some today and find some value as we get the lineups in.